I am actually delighted to be here and participate in the launch of the first ever Pacific Community Agri-Tourism Week, because this is an innovative event which promotes the link between two crucial sectors for the Pacific region as a whole, agriculture and tourism. And it is particularly a pleasure to be here this year and during the month of June, because as some of you have heard, 2015 has been declared a European Year for Development, and each month of this year has been assigned a theme that is going to be pushed for in our communication worldwide, including back home. And the theme of June, which is not finished yet, is sustainable green growth, decent jobs, and businesses. Today, there are about 200 million people unemployed worldwide. And in developing countries, only a quarter of the working age population is engaged in productive and decent employment. We estimate that nearly 900 million workers are living in households with income below the poverty line. Of course, this makes it very difficult for new people to enter the job market, and the most penalized groups, as usual, are the youth and women. Historically, high birth rates combined with slow economic growth, and this has resulted in high unemployment in many Pacific Island countries. In the most affected countries, this has reached 60%. Now, in order to create jobs and decent jobs, you need businesses. Businesses are the job creator, the leaders of innovation and change. And they are keys to ensuring decent work, forging responsible and sustainable development. At the end of the day, development is about making investment and economic activity work for everyone, while at the same time protecting our planet and safeguarding resources for the future generations. It is now widely recognized that the private sector is the engine of economic growth, and it's the private sector that generates jobs, contributing to public revenue and providing goods and services. If it invests in suitable innovation and business models, it can improve poor people's lives by boosting their productive activities. The European Commission works closely with governments in developing countries to help them develop and implement policies to support the private sector development. It provides substantial grant funding across a wide range of activities, including regulatory reforms, capacity building, and the provision of business development services, with a particular focus on strengthening local micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Over the last decade, the support by the Commission for the private sector development has averaged €300 million per year. And this is far from being over, because we are planning a lot more for the next financial perspective. But on a broader scale, the European Union is committed to engaging with the private sector and strengthening its role in building self-sustaining economies. The Commission's recent communication to the Council and the Parliament on a stronger role of the private sector in achieving inclusive and sustainable growth in developing countries has stressed this aspect and has made this policy very clear. Building on past achievements and lessons learned and taking into account the feedback received from all stakeholders, there was a very wide consultation before this communication was issued. The Commission proposes a strategic framework for strengthening the role of the private sector in achieving inclusive and sustainable growth. And this will consist of two levels, which we believe we can add value and effectively complement actions by member states, financing institutions, and other development partners, of course. On one level, of course, we'll continue to work with governments, establishing strategic partnerships with them in order to contribute to create and maintain a regulatory framework which is favorable to the development of business. On the other level, we want to engage directly with the private sector actors themselves. What has been done only insufficiently on our side until the recent past. Pacific Island countries face common challenges in their diversity in achieving sustained economic growth and private sector development. Major constraints include the small size, the geographic dispersion, the cost of doing business, which is higher than in most other regions, cost of transport, cost of fossil fuels, of course, and vulnerability to natural hazards and to external economic conditions. The Pacific region feels most heavily the impact of climate change as a pressing need to generate livelihood, and its populations consume more and more imported, highly refined foods, with consequent health impacts, and with a decrease on the local food production and consumption. Now, the two productive sectors of agriculture and tourism seem to offer the best opportunities for inclusive economic growth in the region, and therefore the promotional linkages between the two can contribute to creating improved economic opportunities, build resilience in rural communities, and enhance sustainable development in both sectors. Therefore, the European Union is glad to take part in the Pacific Community Agri-Tourism Week, which will allow for analyzing the drivers of success of some business models, identifying further opportunities for linking small-scale farmers to the tourism industry and increase its market linkages. And it is indeed a very important platform to discuss new ideas and not least identify the support that may be needed to strengthen the links between local suppliers and the tourism industry. I would like to conclude just by highlighting two important regional projects that have been carried out by the European Commission in the framework of the 10th European Development Fund. First of all, the Pacific Agriculture Policy Project, which will go on, which has gone on from June 2013, and is part of a long-standing partnership with SPC, with the Pacific Community. The implementation of the project, of course, is coordinated with the Technical Center for Rural and Agricultural Development and the Food and Agriculture Organization. This project operates in 15 Pacific countries. These 15 include, as is the case for all EU projects, Timor, and is aimed at enhancing the regional and inter-regional capacity of the agriculture sector as a vehicle for poverty eradication. The program is specifically tailored to support policymakers, farmers associations, micro, small and medium enterprises, and particularly smallholders. At the same time, and in parallel, the Pacific Regional Tourism Capacity Building Program is implemented in partnership with the South Pacific Tourism Organization, SPTO, and has key objectives to improve Pacific countries' capacity for economic integration through a stronger, vibrant, and sustainable tourism sector. It particularly targets the growth of medium and to some extent small tourist business. So we have worked so far in the region, both in the tourism and agriculture sector, and we welcome this initiative of trying to have the two sectors communicate with each other, which is most needed and may have a lot of positive outcomes. We are breaking new ground with this in a joint effort to proactively involve the private sector in boosting economic performances, not to be forgotten that the 11th European Development Fund, for which the Regional Indicative Programme has been signed just 2 weeks ago, has set aside an overall envelope of 166 million euros until 2020. And out of this, an indicative budget of 50 million euros is allocated to regional economic integration, with two main general objectives. The first one is to increase the productive capacity for trade, and the second is economic integration focusing on the development of private sector. So this is going to be another source of resources to feed this ongoing process. In addition, the Regional Indicative Programme has an allocation of 46 million euros that are for either blending or co-financing investment projects. And of course, the business sector, both the agriculture sector and the tourism sector, can benefit from this. These are all opportunities that are there to be seized, of course. Finally, and to conclude, I would like to thank the government of Fiji, the regional organizations and the representatives of the farm organization and tourism industry, and particularly the Pacific community, that have contributed immensely to the organization of this event. I wish it all the success that it deserves and look forward to fruitful outcomes at the end of this week. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very hard working week starting as today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renato, and thank you, Kenny, for welcoming the delegates and stakeholders to the Pacific Community Agro-Tourism Week.